6.5%, was it? Is that what the current odds are of the Stanley Cup?
Well, and if you look at the round-by-round progression, the Stanley Cup favorite is the Vancouver Canucks.
Like, what a time to be alive!
Talking you through every goalie controversy, scoring slump, and draft lottery bust, this is the C4 Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. Here they are, the best starting lineup we could afford under the salary cap. Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
Welcome to another episode of the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by the Full Press Coverage Network and CanucksHockeyBlog.com. I am Chris at Lightforce, joined virtually, as always, by the more than wonderful, always awesome Anna Forsyth at aforsyth03. How you doing, Anna?
Good, thanks. More than wonderful. I don't even know what more than wonderful would be, but I appreciate the compliment.
It is you.
Oh, well, that's lovely. And I love alliteration, so always awesome, Anna.
Always awesome, Anna. I'm going to rename you on Discord now to Always Awesome, Anna. See how many people catch on that.
Yeah. I mean, just go off the rails as soon as we started.
Why not? It's off season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only on 4 Discord servers, and one of them hasn't even started yet, but trying to explain to people on the non-hockey ones why my profile picture is Alex Edler making a face. People are very confused.
So I'm
like,
okay.
Who is this blonde gentleman?
I don't know if it's a Discord Nitro perk, so that might be a limiting factor, but I think the ability to have server-based profile pictures now is possible.
But I do like that picture of Alex Edler.
Oh, I'm just floating it. I'm not saying you have to change.
Yeah, I mean, and if you don't know which one I mean, it's the before and after from the same press conference where he looks delighted and then very disappointed. Almost like Kombucha Girl, but Alex Edler.
Who's Kombucha Girl?
You must know that meme. It's the person that tried kombucha, and it's her. She's just very viscerally reactive to it.
I'll have to look it up after we're done recording because I have no idea what you were talking about.
No. Anyway.
Do you know, actually, just sort of as me thinking, we got friend of the show, Cam Robinson, joining us. He'll be talking about the NHL entry draft on this episode. And if we think back in time, I want to say it was 2 years ago, because obviously we have a pandemic in between. But you and I were in the hot box, and we're talking about like the smallest hot box.
Oh, yeah.
Where we recorded some filler around Matt sitting down with Cam. And that was because there really wasn't much else going on. The Vancouver Canucks had been pretty quiet. The NHL playoffs were sort of happening. And someone described our episode on Reddit as fast forward to the point when Cam joins, because the two people were talking about nothing useful. And I actually replied, many apologies that you had to waste your time to find out when Cam. And I don't think they even considered that me as a host would be in Canucks Reddit.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's like, that's such a utilitarian thing. Do you have like so little time in your day that you can't like take in some non-useful information? Like, a lot of it's non-useful, especially when there's not much else happening.
I know. Well, the funny thing is they then reply with an apology, right? So you said that, I apologized to you, and you could probably read between the lines, and suddenly you feel the need to apologize. And I'm sure your regular listeners are used to this, but I'm here for I get it. But the thing is the commentary of, by telling everyone that what we do is useless is an interesting take when you're then declaring to me it's not what you're interested in. So why are you telling others who might be that they shouldn't be? There's a whole lot of that in social media in general about you shouldn't like this or do that.
I know. Like what you like. That's what I say. Exactly. As long as you aren't harming anyone with your likes, then go right ahead.
But no, we've got Cam Robinson talking about the NHL entry draft. I sit down with him. I will tell you right now, and I will tell you again, it was pre-recorded. Cam is a busy guy. He's joining. Yeah, he's joined Sakaris and Price, and he'll be. If you want to listen to him, we probably already are with them. I knew that a couple of weeks ago when I sat down with him, but I didn't leak it because we're good podcasters, you and I.
We don't leak things unless we don't know it's news.
Well, yeah,
And sometimes we do, but you know.
True. I mean, but we don't do it maliciously. And I mean, there's a thing about trust. Cam's our guy. I don't like. Matt was the one who first brought him onto the show, and I don't know if I really ever heard Cam on the Vancouver Airways all that much, but he was always game to join us. And that was the thing. When I reached out to him, it was just tough timing, and with how busy things would be. But even then, he's like, "No, Chris, I'm going to make this happen. I always enjoy joining."
Yeah, he's a great guy. And the thing is, it's the entry draft. No one's played in the last couple of weeks, so I don't think much has changed.
No.
I mean, there's obviously team needs possibly around the expansion draft, but that's, you know.
Yeah. But we got Cam lined up in a moment. We're going to talk a little bit about the Canucks news in the past couple of weeks. The farm team has a name and brand. We have opinions. Let's see. The expansion draft is going to be happening like what?
Tomorrow when you listen to it.
Tomorrow or yesterday or today, like again, really relative to when you listen. We've got opinions on who's been protected by the Vancouver Canucks who might be available. We do not have friends of the show Sound of Hockey to join us this week, but
because they also very busy.
They're busy too, but they're going to be back. I think we're building a good relationship here. So we'll get them on in sometime, probably in August. But all sorts of other bits and bobs that are going on in the NHL and the C4 text line. It was hot today. We got some text messages. So all that and more coming back up on the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Full Breast Coverage Network and CanucksHockeyBlog.com. Now, I'm going to go with the rundown here as to the big news I think any of our listeners do care about as it pertains to the Vancouver Canucks, not draft-related entry or expansion, and that is the farm team in Abbotsford.
Yep.
I mean, okay, if you don't know, it's the Abbotsford Canucks. I was trying to think, like, do I dance around this, or does like everyone know?
I mean, I think everyone knows. They put it off a bit, but it's now out in the ether. Mm-hmm. Abbotsford Canucks, Abby Canucks on Twitter.
Yeah. For some reason, though, you didn't follow sort of the announcement. The Vancouver Canucks had released a press release saying, hey, on such and such date, we're going to be announcing the brand. And then like the weekend before, they're like, actually, we're going to delay that. Not everything's sorted out. And then I think it was a friend of the show, Patrick Johnson, PJ, had shared that the delay was actually related to some like personal issues with those involved. Like family.
Yeah.
Not talking about quote unquote the family.
Not the family, but
like, family related. It would be similar to those who might have known, like Baby Force was in the hospital, one night, that type of issue. And I'm not saying that that's a kid thing. It's just, we don't know, but okay, cool. Like not cool, but understandably delayed things. But what was really weird is that when they rescheduled the announcement, they're like, yeah, we're going to share it on all of our social channels. And then the time came to share it, and it didn't get shared.
Right.
It's kind of weird.
The whole thing was kind of weird and botched in various ways. Some ways not necessarily their fault and out of their control. But it's such a good news story bringing your farm team more local to your NHL team with all the... And in a good way, because that was always the struggle with Utica, is that you didn't want to take away team from that great community. But good news story. But yeah, they did fudge it a little bit in various ways.
Yeah, including
swing and a miss with that team name.
Well, okay, I've been thinking about this. Like when I heard it was the Abbotsford Canucks, which was essentially what most people were expecting. At first I was like, there were other options available to you, but then I don't really have that much investment as to what the Vancouver Canucks farm team is named. Like if it's the Canucks, whatever, because what are we going to refer to the team as? I'm pretty sure you and I will talk about it as Baby Canucks.
True. And we did say that about Utica quite a bit, but it's just an annoying thing to say, making your AHL debut is still a big deal. That's, your pro debut as a hockey player, but it's just weird to kind of dilute it a bit by like, oh yeah, I'm going to be playing my first game for the Canucks. And then it's like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then it's like, yeah, the Abbotsford Canucks.
Yeah.
When you have to say which one all the time, it's just going to be annoying.
Well, see, the thing is you don't have to say which one when you say Canucks. You have to say which one when you actually mean the Abbotsford version.
Yeah, I think we'll probably call it, sending them down to Abbey or Abbotsford more than we'll say Canucks, but it's just a bit. I will say this is just something I realized too. I know one of the other names in the running was the Aeros, as in AEROS, in relation to like the aviation history. Obviously, to me, it just means a chocolate bar.
Mm-hmm.
But I also realized from hearing people discuss that Canadians say arrows and arrows the same.
Arrow?
Yeah, I didn't realize that before because when people were discussing it, I was thinking, oh, I didn't know bow and arrows was in the mix. That's strange. I wonder what that's about. Is there some medieval thing I don't know about? Is that because of the castle fun park? But now I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, it's just a bit of a
So, well, the thing that actually sort of had me most confused, not so much the name of the Abbotsford Canucks. How is it that the announcement that you make on social media, which is a very simple pre-done video of a logo that you already have access to and Johnny Canuck that you've already used with the big team, how is that delayed because of stuff?
I mean, I had some rumors that they were having trouble finding a designer because obviously they have no in-house design team anymore.
Okay, and maybe that's true. Like, it's just,
yeah. I mean, it's just a bit of a whiff. What's your thoughts on the, design, the logo, the jersey?
It's they're rolling out their St. Patrick's Day one from a few seasons back. like the only. I mean, okay, I shouldn't say only. I bet you there are other design differences, but the only one that I noticed, not being a designer, is they've put that sort of reverse stylized V that forms the A on the sleeves.
Yeah.
Which, if you think back to our episode with Andy Ide from Sound of Hockey, we were talking about how they just invert the VC to an AC and you have Abbotsford Canucks. It feels simple. Simple's not always bad, but I just feel like it was.
It was definitely underwhelming, right?
Yeah.
I think we knew that Johnny Canuck was going to feature in some way. I kind of wouldn't mind of him being on the sleeves and the AC being on the front. But I did like the design in general, like the stripes and stuff. Reminded me a bit of the old like Whalers stuff and the Connecticut Whale of the WHL, of which is the team I follow. So I kind of liked that design element, but yeah, in general, it didn't blow me away. But will I buy some Abbotsford Canucks? I won't buy a jersey, I don't think, but I'll definitely buy some merch of some sort.
See, I don't know if I'll do that.
I mean, I have a Utica Comets, well, 2 Utica Comet shirts actually, but I will treasure those. Well,
this is the thing. I actually think if it wasn't the Abbotsford Canucks, there was a greater likelihood that I would buy merch.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely going to buy a piece of merch. Would it have been more if it was the whole package was more interesting? Yeah. I would definitely be more engaged. So I think we just have to lean into the positive parts of it, which is the location, the personnel. That's what we got.
But Abbey Canucks are a thing. Ryan Johnson, we already knew was going to be involved. I mean, that wasn't a secret. And from there, just really all that was released about the branding was, here's our jerseys. And unfortunately for the Vancouver Canucks or Abbotsford Canucks or whichever version of the Canucks you want to suggest was in charge of it, they got beat out by the local WHL team, Vancouver Giants, in a jersey release. I know you're not a big fan of sort of the Giants jersey.
No, I don't mind. It's only the mascot.
Oh, I thought it was the jersey. Okay.
No,
like,
I'm terrified of the mascot, but I like the rest of it.
Okay. Well, the Vancouver Giants jersey, because I was going to say, like, I wasn't certain. I actually thought you weren't a big fan of it, but I know there are a lot of people like, wow, that one pops. And then the Portland Winterhawks, they have rebranded to some respect.
Yeah, which is very good.
And their new logo and new jersey also popping. Also, like, 2 WHL teams beat out the AHL team as far as brand announcements.
Yeah, it's not the best start, so hopefully onwards and upwards. I think it's just another example of the Canucks skeleton staff showing, right? Things slip through the cracks.
It does. And it could be that maybe it was like, we need something, we need to do this, let's do it. It's path of least resistance. And there's nothing to suggest they don't go and do this for a couple seasons before then, like maybe another sort of quick rebrand. But it's like, you go to the Abbotsford Canucks website, and even the website is like trying to sell this as like, I mean, okay, first of all, if they actually did research and invest in sort of like a brand investigation, whatever, blah, 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 they talk about how there's history and it pays homage to our roots, and we brought back the logo. Well, you've always had the logo. You're just now giving it center stage. In fact, there are people who would have wanted this logo to be center stage on the jersey already for the big team. Then it talks about the landscape and the colors and everything that we're doing, and and our fans, and we're going to represent our fans because it's everyone wants to be Canucks. We're all Canucks. I mean, I get all that, but it's like, it's nothing new. You just Abbotsforded it.
Yeah. Also, can I just say, I just took a look at their website. That's very poor sentence structure. They could use some semicolons.
And then the colors. I guess the colors are apparently different than the Vancouver Canucks colors. They have field green, Pacific blue, Valley fog, Fraser navy, mountain white. I bet you, if I were to go and look at the colors for the Vancouver Canucks, probably same like hex codes with different names.
Yeah, because I don't mind the color scheme being the same, because that was always
a
bugbear of mine when we had Chicago Wolves as a farm team. There was literally nothing about their jersey, not even a small patch on the shoulder that would denote that it belonged to the Vancouver Canucks. And especially as during the lockout, I followed them very closely. It was just kind of frustrating that there was no link at all. So I liked it when the Comets had a similar logos and color scheme. So
the the website abbotsford.canucks.com is essentially their website right now. I think you can get like abbycanucks.com or abbotsfordcanucks.com, but that's where it takes you, abbotsford.canucks.com. So they're hosting it on their main site. Fine, so be it. But it's got absolutely diddly squish.
Yeah, you do wonder if they were just worried about buy-in and they wanted the brand recognition, but I think that's crazy. When you sell out games Abbotsford games when the Chicago Wolves come into town, people care about the Canucks farm team. They always have. I don't think that should be a worry.
Well, as far as caring about the team, though, the interview cycle that fired up the organization, whether it be Ryan Johnson, who we already knew, Trent Call returning to coach the team, right? Jim was on the radio as well. They're talking about how it's bringing hockey to the Valley, and I actually like that idea. I think Abbotsford and the Valley were great hosts when the Abbey Heat were here. It was a miss to have a competitor farm team. It would have made better sense to have Florida's farm team here. Than
I
Calgary's.
We talked about that last episode. It's true. It just was never going to work.
But they've also talked about how the pricing will be accessible to families, which then gives me pause to consider, is this what they're going to market as the family-friendly version of the Vancouver Canucks? Go to Abbotsford to watch a game as opposed to pay the exorbitant price to bring your family down to the big club?
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind that.
Well, if you think about it, though, if you are a family who lives, let's say, in Richmond, like mine does, to drive to Abbotsford, because there's no other alternative, I have to drive. There's no transit option. I have to drive. It is going to be, during the week, a heck of a trip for me to take my family to that game. Let's say, optimistically, I can get there in an hour. Like,
I mean,
that's
it
not
would take
realistic
me
during
an hour.
not rush hour, but
Yeah,
right. Go to the game and then that long to get home.
yeah, that's not.
I'm like, this is I have no problem with the Valley, and I think there's having an opportunity for those to sort of see both. But you have to consider that if you're going to go and price your family into the Valley and away from the big club, that is a miss.
If Canucks get more expensive with the project on the ice getting worse and the fans out the building for a year, that's going to be a PR disaster in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, PR disaster will be amplified when the Abbotsford Canucks start putting sellouts on the board. Smaller barn, but people in seats, lots of energy compared to potential. Like, if the Vancouver Canucks don't show, like, let's say we see a similar season, heaven forbid, a similar season that we saw last year with fans in the stands, Vancouver crowds tune out. Doesn't matter who you are.
I mean, the Canucks will be lucky if they tune out. I think they'll get angry is what will happen.
Well, that makes things worse, right?
Yeah.
Is the fans who are angry, vocalizing their displeasure in the building. And that will happen. That's not a Vancouver Canucks thing. That's a Vancouver fan thing.
Yeah.
BC Lions have experienced it. Vancouver Whitecaps have experienced it.
Whitecaps.
Vancouver Canadians, not so much, but I think the Canadians don't.
No, Canadians are adorable.
But the thing, they market themselves like you're coming to the ballpark for the good time. And by the way, there's a ball game
and a fun dance. You can't get angry at the Seas. It doesn't matter how badly they play.
But that's the thing, right? Like, I think the Seas, they got it figured out. Like the Canucks, the Lions, the Whitecaps, hey, come and watch our team play. The Seas do that, but the Seas are like, come for the good time. That includes a baseball game.
Yeah. I mean, sure.
Total experience.
But the other teams are trying to compete, like, rightly or wrongly.
And I'm sure there's listeners here that say, oh, like, yeah, put 2,000 fans into a Canucks game and see what it's like. No doubt. The Seas aren't going to go and sell out BC Place. They know that. But, like, they could have a poor season and people still show up to the Nat to have a good time.
I can't
the Vancouver
wait to
Canadians
get back.
are about the total package. It's the full experience.
Yeah.
Sushi races, dancing groundskeepers.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe that's baseball. Like, I don't have enough experience going to more than Vancouver Canadians.
I mean, I've been to a few other games, but it's definitely a little more focused on the action.
Yeah, like it's experience, but there's just this is an experience there. Anyhow, we digress. But yeah, I'm curious what you, our listeners' thoughts are on the Abbey Canucks. If you haven't done so already, obviously you can talk to us on Twitter, talk to us in Discord. Are you going to be going to games in Abbey? And if so, how many?
Yeah, and I'll admit that I'm coming from a position of privilege of being in Vancouver and having Canucks games accessible to me, and thanks to group pack pricing and no dependence. I am able to go to Canucks games, at least some. Yeah. So if you're out in the Valley, this is definitely an exciting moment.
Yeah. Other news in the Vancouver Canucks Smealosphere, although the Smealosphere is more like the content creator space, bloggers, Twitter, podcasters. But regardless, what were your thoughts when word got out that Jim was looking to wheel and deal prior to the expansion list submission?
I mean, I was terrified that someone had switched out his Fisher-Price phone for a real one. He somehow got hold of an actual cell phone. Yeah, I was definitely worried. I mean, there was, rumors about teams calling about Holtby. Who knows where that came from, whether it came from legit source or Holtby's agents. But I think there is legit interest in him. And my only worry with that was, will we get another goalie in time to expose? Or are we exposing, like, Mikey DiPietro doesn't count. We'd have to bring in another goalie, and at what cost would that be? But it's definitely exciting that there's interest in Holtby. But yeah, you were just worried what he was going to do, and turns out he did okay.
That's the thing. Like, I genuinely, when I saw that he, like, and he's on radio, it's like, yeah, we're gonna take a look at what might be able to work out. Lots of teams obviously need to make some things happen. Some teams are in tough spots. We're going to try to take advantage of that. And it's like, okay, you've not given us a whole lot of proof that that's your wheelhouse, but okay.
But
And then he goes and gets Jason Dickinson out of Dallas for a pick. And I mean, I will be the first to say I'm not always a fan of him giving up picks, because drafting, whether it's been Jim or not, has been an area he has done very well in.
Yeah. Obviously.
Dickinson slots in for decent money for the role he's going to play, and the Vancouver Canucks need a Sutter replacement.
That's it. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? It's just like, that's the right money for the right guy. It's hard to get super excited about a bottom six forward, but
it's the right guy for the right money, and that's not something Jim does.
Yeah. And I know we've talked in Discord about, maybe he's going to be close to $3 million a year, which isn't ideal, but that only worries us because we still have all these Jags on, $6 million contracts on the books. That's the only reason.
But
there's any pause, but I'm excited. He seems like a good guy. I mean, socially conscious. Was part of the group during the bubble that knelt with Matt Dumba during the anthem. Thinks about the game a lot. Watches Vancouver a lot.
Stars media are lamenting the loss. Like they're discussing how he's a good interview, good kid with a good head on his shoulders. Gives us this is like, oh my goodness. So the Vancouver Canucks just got a decent player who fits the role for the right price, which wasn't stupid expensive. Like, has Jim finally figured this thing out?
Yeah.
Does he know how to GM now?
Although it is hilarious hearing him today saying, "Oh, we'll see if we can recoup that third round pick," and it's just luck. Good luck. What are you going to give up for that? He's
out there saying, "Hey, Louis Eriksson can be had for a third."
Yeah. I mean, it's just hilarious. It's like, okay, if that third round pick was so important to you, don't give it away. I don't see us getting that third round pick back, but it's not super strong draft. Like, all picks are good picks, but
yeah, I mean, if they don't get the pick back, I'm not upset.
Yeah,
right. I'm upset that he's giving picks away. That's sort of his thing, but I'm not upset about this particular pick in this particular scenario. I'm more concerned about what he might do as we go into the free agency. But before we get into free agency, we've got an expansion draft and an entry draft. We're going to talk about the entry draft a little bit later, but let's talk a little bit about the expansion draft now.
Yeah.
Any surprises with who the Vancouver Canucks left unprotected?
I mean, not really. Maybe if you were to ask me 2 weeks ago to look at that list, a little, but that's because we didn't have Jason Dickinson. Obviously, that meant that one of the people they were planning on protecting, now we know it was Cole Lind, and they had to tell his agent, sorry, we've got a new guy. Yeah, it is what it is. He didn't want to, not that it matters with Tyler Myers, because Seattle weren't going to take him anyway, but that seems like a waste of a spot. But yeah, McEwen, we kind of thought he was going to end up being unprotected. He's a great character guy, but if he ends up being taken by Seattle, oh well. Obviously, Edler decided he wants to go out and test the market, which is interesting. Because that seems like it requires effort, which Edler is not a big fan of. So, I don't know. But again, not a huge loss at this point.
If you're Edler, I've been thinking about this. Like, I'll come back to expansion list in a moment. But with Edler, his window to win is barely open.
Yeah.
And this is just as a career. If he wants to explore the market, it's possible there's a team out there that has a shot that's going to take him. It's not the Vancouver Canucks. Anyone who out there thinks the Vancouver Canucks are in their window to win right now is fooling themselves. And I'm not talking about, hey, we're going to make the playoffs and like the Montreal Canadiens proved anything's possible. You're right. The Vancouver Canucks could do that. But if you're Alex Edler, you're not betting.
Yeah. I just
the opportunity on that.
Feel like I thought he had already kind of made that decision 2 years ago that, he wanted to stay as a Canuck, like the team meant more to him than... And I'm not trying to be overly sentimental here. I just thought that he likes playing for the Canucks. Didn't really want to move. His family like it here. But, good for him. He's the last of the 2011 class. If he has one more shot to win a cup, more power to Alex Edler.
Well, but the thing about losing Edler to free agency, if that is the case, which I think anyone who is a Canucks fan has considered as being a possibility, it's not a possibility we've actually realistically considered as happening. I think everyone thought Edler would be coming back, and now the Vancouver Canucks will have to fill his minutes and fill the role he plays in free agency, which ain't good. Jim and free agency go together like gasoline in a match.
Right. And I think it does mean that Nate Schmidt's just going to have to lump it for another year because...
Well, and that's the other thing that's happened is apparently there's a whole lot of smoke that Schmidt wants out.
Yeah. And no one on the Nate Schmidt side of things is doing anything to extinguish that fire. So, I mean, it seems like Nate Schmidt's just going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Suck it up. Sorry, kiddo.
Is what it is. But back to expansion. So, McEwen, Lind, unprotected. Holtby is there.
Apparently,
there isn't.
Apparently, they like him.
Well, so this is the thing. I'm skeptical that they take Holtby unless, so we talked about this with Andy, and Andy sort of was enrolled in the idea. Maybe they go and they take a player and they flip. And this is the thing which I think upsets fans is like, well, wait a minute. If Seattle could have done this, why couldn't Vancouver have?
Yeah.
Obviously, the situation is different. It's post-expansion draft. Now you know what you've lost and what your needs will remain to be. But yeah, the hot rumor today was that Seattle is taking like 5 goaltenders.
Yeah.
They're going to flip 3 of them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean...
If they're taking 5 goaltenders, Holtby's got to be one of them.
Right.
I mean, heck, they'll take Price too. Like, Price has been left unprotected, though there's sort of concerns about health potentially there.
Yes, and I think money-wise, though Holtby ain't cheap, he is cheaper than Carey Price. So I wouldn't be shocked if they took him. They need a veteran, they need an experienced goaltender, not necessarily veteran. And a lot of there aren't many goalies out there. It's a very dry market. So, Holtby could be the making of him. Look at Marc-Andre Fleury.
Mm-hmm.
So,
we'll take him too.
Yeah. So possibly, the other idea would be that they would take one of Canucks' less desirable contracts and take Holtby in a trade if Canucks retain salary, but that's another option. But I don't see Jim wangling that. So if they want to take Holtby, I mean, great. I like Holtby a lot, but it's fair to say that he hasn't had the renaissance we were hoping for.
No. Maybe he does in his second season. Maybe he does it in a contract year.
Yeah.
And, his way his contract is, his AAV ain't horrible. It's not good because of a performance, but it's the actual cash money that he's getting paid being $6 million, I think. I could look it up, but I'm just too lazy.
Yeah, but it's over 2/3 on the second year, so
yeah.
I think it's 3/4 almost. So yeah. That will be interesting, but I see them either taking Lind or Holtby. That would be my guess.
Mm-hmm. Most lists I've seen actually suggest Holtby. Sound of Hockey, I think they had said Lind. I trust them.
Right. I mean, so do I. Yeah. I reckon if I had to pick one, I'd choose Lind, but I think they're definitely more interested in Holtby than I previously gave them credit.
Yeah. And if there is truth to the rumor that Holtby is a desirable commodity on the market, what's not to say that Seattle doesn't actually employ that we're going to take 5 goaltenders and make deals?
Yeah.
And we've already got the deals lined up, which would explain why Jim couldn't make the deals, because these are teams that are probably willing to go in and deal for Holtby, but Seattle probably is willing to take less than what Jim would have.
Yeah, I mean, they have that desirable cap space to weaponize as well, which the Canucks do not have. Yeah, I mean, if you were listening to Donnie and Jolly today, they're talking about Seattle maybe taking Nick Bjugstad and flipping into the Canucks. So that'd be interesting. I mean,
how does that work with the Vancouver Canucks salary cap situation?
Good question. They would have to do some deal in the Canucks.
What are the Canucks going to give up to, like, this is...
Yeah, they would, that would have to, because I can see how the Canucks get out of it with Seattle taking on some salary cap but what are they giving up? They would be giving up.
Yeah, like what, if I'm Seattle, I'm not doing the Vancouver Canucks a favor like that.
Yeah,
no.
It would have to be. I think they would have to get a lot. And
I mean, that's scary. Don't give Jim that power.
Yeah, exactly. So that terrifies me. But I am excited in general to see what Seattle do on Wednesday in terms of who they pick up, who they end up flipping, and yeah, the first of 2 drafts this week. It's very exciting.
Speaking of drafts this week, the NHL entry draft is the second one. And coming right up next is friend of the show, Cam Robinson. You can find them on Twitter at hockey_Robinson. You can listen to him all this week on Sakaris and Price. He's obviously going to be on all sorts of radio hits, news hits, TV hits, podcast hits, everything. Because Cam Robinson is one of the brightest, prospect minds out there. I'm trying to think of a better way to describe him, but he's just awesome people all around. We'll join Cam in a moment. You're listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com and the Full Press Coverage Network.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on it.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? And that because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He's going to get a lot of power play time. And yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
So I'm pleased to share that we have joined from his extremely, extremely busy schedule. Last minute, of course, because that's how we here at C4 roll, is Cam Robinson, who's the director of film scouting at Elite Prospects, also known as the Lord of Fantasy Hockey.
That's right.
I would have led with Lord of Fantasy Hockey if I was you. I mean, I was looking at your Twitter bio, and I can see there's maybe some hierarchy, but Lord of Fantasy Hockey just...
It's not bad, right? Being the Lord, the one and only at EP. Yeah, that was pretty good. That was actually that was the big draw to pull me officially away from Dobber Hockey, Dobber Prospects, is that they wanted me and to run the whole fantasy department. And right now that's a one-man job. So I am fully running it as the Lord. Yes.
As the Lord.
Yeah,
okay.
yes.
Well, I mean, so does that mean instead of saying friend of the show, you're now, Lord of the show? Like, I don't know how this works.
We're talking, it's lowercase L though, right? Like,
okay.
I'm not a peasant. I'm a lord. I'm not quite king status or anything yet. We'll wait for that.
Okay. We'll wait for that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for joining us. For our listeners, pulling back the curtain a little bit, sitting down with Cam at the start of July, which might be kind of weird because you're going to be listening to this nearer to the end of July, just before the NHL entry draft takes place. So I want to qualify that if Cam says something that is completely off the board because, hey, something's happened since we spoke, blame Chris in the calendar. Don't blame Cam.
That sounds good.
Just, yeah.
Felt
it important to get out there. And everyone here, I think, listens to you as well. I mean, that you're on all the shows because you were in high demand. But also you can find on Twitter at hockey_Robinson. So all the latest will come from Cam there. But why don't we dive on in? So, I'll be the first to admit I'm not the most savvy when it comes to entry or the entry draft and prospects. I follow sort of the professional side, and I follow a very specific team. So if it's not related to the Vancouver Canucks, I don't know what's happening. Like Montreal is currently up 3-0. Is that it in the Stanley Cup? I mean,
something like that. Hey, somebody's up somewhere.
That, yeah. But looking at this draft class, there's been some scuttlebutt that it's maybe not been the strongest we've seen as sort of recently. Could you speak to why there might be a reason that's the case? Like, is this just more of a sort of an ebb and flow, or could it be related to maybe what we've seen over the last couple of years with the pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is really intrinsic on the pandemic impacting what the draft looks like. I think that it's been considered, a quote unquote bit of a down year for a while now. There hasn't been, I think number one is that there hasn't been a marquee generational or clear cut number one guy that teams are going to, fall down the standings to try to get. That guy doesn't live in this class. It's not 1999. Like, it's not the Sedin class where there's 2 Hall of Famers and then nobody. I mean, Zetterberg went in the 7th or whatever that year, but it's not that kind of class. But it's more 2012, 06. These years where there's kind of question marks about who's going to go at the top. Is there really a superstar in the mix? So I've been saying to people is, are there going to be good players coming out of this crop? Yeah, absolutely. Is there going to be some stars? Probably a few. A superstar? There's maybe one hidden in there. He's not obvious at this point in time. But you never know what's going to happen in the next 4 or 5 years with player development. So there might be one of those hiding in there. I don't see a Hall of Famer again. You never know, but it's one of these classes that it's going to take some work to find the really good players, especially outside of the top 10. And because of the pandemic, it's going to make it even more challenging because these guys haven't had the opportunity to showcase themselves at the same level that they would normally have. So teams that have invested previously in their scouting departments, in their video scouting, in their analytics, they're going to have an upper hand going into this draft because they were more adjusted to what they had to do this season. And that is basically a bunch of film scouting. So for me, it hasn't been an adjustment at all. It's just, I keep doing what I'm doing. And some other teams too, Carolina has invested a ton into their video scouting for years and years. Darren York is their assistant general manager, former head of amateur scouting. He got hired on there as a video scout 10 years ago. Right. So he knows the lay of the land and he's got his guys rolling properly. The Sabres are only video scouting nowadays, but they've also slashed 3/4 of their scouting staff. So I'm not sure if you steal from one to feed the other, if it's all that beneficial. But the teams that are kind of going to be a little bit behind, I think, are the ones that they have a bunch of scouts that are hawks in the stands and they're not used to going to and sitting in front of their computer for hours on end and rewind and clip and take notes that way. So it'll be really interesting. We're going to see it though. It's going to be hilarious. It's every year. GMs get up there in front of the mics and they go, I couldn't believe he was there. We got our guy every round. He was there. That was our guy, right? And you hear it every year, but this year is probably going to be even more so because the disparity between lists is going to be just astronomical. Guys are going to be, guys I have do not draft on my board are going to be like 15 on a team's list. And so it's like one of us is going to be right or closer to being right. And I'm sure it's going to be like that on a team-to-team basis too. So it'll be fun to watch. It'll be, I think the disparity this year, it's going to be even more joyous to look back on in 5 to 10 years and be like, what the hell was this guy going here? Or what the hell was that guy going there? Like, how did he fall? So it'll be good. And I think some teams are going to do well and some teams are not. And that's probably going to shed some light on who's providing enough resources into the big picture in scouting.
Yeah. Well, and sort of a follow-up question, which you had already answered, was sort of, with this inability to scout in person, could that have impacted the lack of consensus? But sort of an extension of that, where do the Vancouver Canucks fall in your understanding? Are they the hawk in the stands team? Are they video? Are they a blended approach?
They're a blended approach in the sense that they have, they got Beecher and they've got Aiden and those guys, they're doing video work. They're doing analytical work there. They've got their fingers in all the pies though too, right? They do some pro scouting. They do amateur scouting. So the fact that they have those two guys on staff definitely are helpful because it is definitely it is a smaller group. And it is I don't want to say an echo chamber, but it is a group of like-minded scouts going up into management, from my understanding, that do prefer to be in the stands. Ron DeLorme's old school. Some of these other guys, Todd Harvey just got, officially named head of amateur scouting. He's a guy who was just a regional scout for a few years, former player, obviously, but, didn't have that crossover experience, didn't have that management experience going in. And now he's overseeing the whole process, with Weisbrod, kind of above him in that umbrella. So yeah, I would say that they're closer to that hawk in the stands, maybe a little outdated, but they do have, a couple of really smart people there. Chris Gear also is a smart guy. They've got they're all smart guys, but they have some people that are maybe a little bit more progressive that help them out. So they're not the Sabres. I can't even think of a team that's like fully going to push back against something like this. Maybe Pittsburgh. I'm not sure their scouting staff's all that advanced in video work and analytics and stuff like that. Maybe I shouldn't say that because I don't know for certain, but they're somewhere in the middle. So we'll see. We'll see when the ball gets shifted into those guys' hands. So normally, for someone like Beach, who'd only been with the team for a year last draft, is that they were probably coming knocking on him for advice in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, right? They're not going to be really letting him make the top pick. So I'm guessing that's probably going to be the case this year as well. But hopefully, if he's been proving his worth there and deservedly so, is that maybe he'll get his voice heard a little bit earlier too.
Cool. And you'd sort of mentioned as to how when we look at lists, there is quite a bit of variation. But one of the things that we've seen is a lot of people have Owen Power sort of listed first, but then after Power, it's almost like a blender and a washing machine where everything's just being tumbled around. Without giving away all your premium content, because obviously we don't want to do that here as much as if you're willing to give, we'll take it. Who do you like sort of within the top 3 or sort of in that sort of top 10?
Yeah, well, so it's fun because, by the time this comes out, my list will already be published. There we go. So if you're an EP Rinkside subscriber, you've already seen it by this time. But, I haven't hidden the fact that I love Brant Clark. I'm a big Brant Clark fan. I think that his overall upside, especially offensively, but defensively as well, as a two-way defender, I think he's got number 1 defender upside. The skating could use some cleaning up in a mechanical standpoint, and he's going to need to, so he doesn't get crossed up by Connor McDavid flying down the wing on him and guys like that with that kind of speed. But I'm a big fan of his because I think he's the smartest kid in the crop. And then the second guy that I'm huge and very, very high on is Mason McTavish. And so, we're recording today on the 5th. My big McTavish article is going to come out on the 7th. So again, y'all have been able to chance to read it. Another extremely smart player who knows his limitations and uses them to an advantage versus some of these players that can't recognize their own limitations and then just run full bore into trouble. Simon Edvinsson is a player that comes to mind. Luke Hughes does that a little bit. At least he's younger for this crop, so he's got a little more time to kind of develop that. But I love these smart players that have the upside. So for me, it's Power's a very good player. He's a very good player, and I haven't given him enough credit throughout the season, I don't think, for his ability to adapt to situations. So, when he was playing for Chicago in the USHL, he wasn't great to start the year, and then bam, by the end of it, he was awesome. Started with Michigan this year, some hiccups naturally as an 18-year-old, as a freshman, and the NCAA, boom, by the end of the season, he's playing 25 minutes. He's playing awesome. At the World Championships, he steps in. He's like a little overwhelmed by the competition. By the end of it, he's running that decor and playing 25 minutes. So I think he's going to be a minute munching, really high-end defender. Maybe he's a number 3 on a good team. Maybe he's number 1 if things break right. So the upside's there. I don't see 50, 60 points coming from him, but that's okay. He's going to be a hell of a stopper. So those 3 guys are going to be, in my top 3, if we're being honest here, if we're letting the cat out of the bag. So I like those guys a bunch.
Cool. And sort of expanding on the fact that we've seen quite a mix within the top 10, there's this common thought: best player available when you're looking at the top 10, whether it's a positional need, what have you. Now, positional need probably plays into your belief as to who the best player available is. I'll use the Vancouver Canucks, with Elias Pettersson, who at that time, I don't think anyone had the Canucks taking. But do you think that this might be the year? Okay, well, sorry, Cam.
Do you not remember the tweet? Yeah. That thing comes up every couple of years, and I love it. It's just, I called it, and it felt good. So I'm gonna dust my shoulder a little bit here too. Yeah.
Well, okay, so this is why everyone should be listening to then right now, because we're giving the goods. But if there was ever a year where you were to go and truly address positional need, is this it, or do we still follow the rules? BPA.
It's a good question. For Vancouver, it doesn't matter because they're not in the position to do it. If they were picking 5 or 6 or something like that. And so realistically, this tier goes 9, maybe 10 deep if you're talking Jesper Wallstedt, if you like the goalie, who I think belongs in that group. So let's call it 10. If you're picking at 5 or 6, then you've got a decision to make, because there's probably going to be Brant Clark, a right shot defenseman. There's probably going to be a couple center prospects, maybe Matty Beniers, maybe McTavish. There's going to be a bunch of wingers. So there would be that opportunity to be like, okay, within this tier, We see these guys as all similar upside players in their different positions. You know, you got a potential number one goalie mixed in there too. What do we need? And I think that at that point in this draft, you wouldn't be leaving a tier. You see them similarly, you could address organizational need. And so for Vancouver, I think that would be the right shot defenseman or the center prospect, because they're void of those in the organization at this point. Picking at 9, say Detroit or the Sharks pick Volstad, and that means that Vancouver has a choice between 2 players, then yeah, maybe they do get an opportunity to be like, do we really need a winger, a slick playmaking winger like Kent Johnson? Or do we need the defenseman or the center? And I think you look at whichever other one's sitting there. If it comes down to 2 wingers and whatever, right, you take the best winger that you got there. But I don't think they're really going to have that opportunity this year. But I think in this class in general, a team like Columbus, a team like Detroit, they're going to have that opportunity to make that call. And I don't think it's outrageous to do so in this draft because of the talent and just because of the tiers, how they break up too.
Mm-hmm. Well, thinking about the Vancouver Canucks, I mean, there's been some discussion that they might be willing to entertain phone calls as to their pick, more so than years past. Do you think there is an opportunity to potentially trade down and get something in return? Or is this more of the Vancouver Canucks hoping for the phone to ring because a team has someone they want in the moment?
I mean, Benning's already come out and said that they like 9 guys in this group, and I'm assuming that doesn't include Wallstad. So for them, it would have to be a worthy enough package to move out of that tier and into the next grouping of guys, which is, like you said, it's a blender for sure. Once you get outside of the top 10, like there's going to be some guy ranked 11 on someone's board that lots of teams are going to have in the 20s or 30s. So if they really like a guy, and they're like, we can slide back to 15 and we can get Fyodor Svechkov, another center prospect with 2-way ability. We could swing on a kid like Cole Sillinger, who's got goal scoring, nasty upside sort of thing, and get ourselves a pick in the 40s and maybe another one in the top 120, I don't know if they will. I know for a fact that they've had opportunities in years past of the draft to slide back spots for serious offers, and it would have worked out very, very well for them, and they chose not to do it, despite having those opportunities. And so, yeah, maybe they've learned their lesson. Maybe they are now valuing like, hey, let's get more darts at the board to give to Aiden and Beach and all these guys that have done the work. I'm dubious. I would probably be more likely to believe that they are dangling number 9 to go get themselves a 25-year-old win now forward or defenseman that can help them right now, despite their situation and where they're currently at. That would be more believable to me, not the move I would be making. But that's another story.
Well, and I was actually going to be my follow-up question to that. If you were in charge of the Canucks as of now, would you be the one to go for the win now, or would you go for that 9th pick? And I
mean, I think that it's tough because you see what's happening with your core, right? Like Horvat's, he's already 100, right? Like it seems like yesterday they just drafted him, but he's basically out of his early prime. Besser's not too far behind. PD and Quinn are going to need those huge contract extensions. So the time to win would have been, you'd think now would be the time to be loading up, but they've just fumbled the ball so much the last 5-6 years and just handcuffed themselves with terrible cap hits and moved draft picks for anything and everything and prospects. And so they're not in a position to succeed right now. Win and get in and who knows what can happen theory is great. And, as a theory, but then you look at the Habs, they had a fun run and their fans got to celebrate some stuff and they're going to sell some merch. But at the end of the day, they're getting outclassed by a team that was built properly. So for me, I'm keeping the pick. If someone wants to dangle a really impactful 21-year-old who's still on an entry-level contract and fills a positional need, like, they want Kent Johnson and, Arizona wants to give you Victor Soderstrom. Yeah, I got time for that. Sam Reinhart for number 9. I like Sam Reinhart. I think he's a good player, but he's going to want an extension. He's going to cost you a lot of money and he's going to fit on your second line and put up 55, 60 points. That's cool, but that's not enough to put you over the edge. So, no, I'm keeping the pick unless it makes sense long-term.
A couple of final questions as we wrap up. The Seattle Kraken, and we're going to start talking about, because we know some of our listeners are either converted Kraken fans who are Canucks fans changing to the Kraken, or potentially have been tuning in more as we've talked about them. They're in the advantageous spot of being near the top of the board as far as their picks are concerned. Do you believe they go out and get themselves their franchise draft pick, or might they go and use this pick as a mechanism to build a win sooner team, similar to sort of what Las Vegas was able to do, but Seattle is obviously not going to be able to do the same way because GMs are a little bit more eyes open to what goes on.
Yeah, I for Vegas, they picked 6 and 11 and 17 or whatever in their first year, right? Getting Glass, Suzuki, and Brandstrom, and then using those players once it turned out that, hey, this bunch of misfits, the lost toys or whatever, they came together and they were looking real. It's like, okay, let's move Nick Suzuki. Let's go get ourselves Max Pacioretty. In hindsight, they probably should have moved Cody Glass. Let's move Eric Brandstrom for Mark Stone. Like, these are the type of deals that you shouldn't happen, but they got themselves these premier players to attach to them. For Seattle, you keep this pick. You keep the pick. Maybe you end up getting another first rounder in that top 20. And it's then you find out, hey, our team's pretty good. And then you start moving those guys out if you think you have a chance to be a quick winner. And then, if you're a quick winner, look at Vegas, right? Like, they've just inspired this rabid fan base. And so Seattle, I'm sure, would like to do that too. Unlikely they're going to follow that same path. So no, you take the pick, you take who's sitting there. If I'm them, I'm hoping it's Owen Power, because there's a franchise defenseman, hopefully, that you can kind of build around, and maybe you're pulling a guy like Brent Burns out of San Jose in the expansion draft that can kind of mentor him a little bit. But at the same time, you're going to take the guy who's best available sitting there at number 2, and you're probably not going to get too crazy.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, again, thanks for taking time to your schedule to join us, Cam. What might you want our listeners to know before we let you go?
Yeah, follow along, Hockey_Robinson on Twitter there, like you're saying. Go get that subscription to EP Rinkside. We just, a couple days ago, we just passed 10,000 subscriptions, which is awesome. When I first came on board 2 years ago, we were at 2,000 subs. So, we're growing quickly. The content we're putting out is awesome. We usually have some coupons running too to get you a month or 3 free as well if you sign up for a year. It's all the draft stuff you want, all the Lord of Fantasy hockey stuff you need. We do all the NHL good. So it's, I'm completely unbiased, obviously, but I think it rivals the best content on the internet for sure. So, and you get all the extra stats on elite prospects, and who doesn't want that stuff too, right?
True that. Well, thanks again, Cam, for joining us. We'll take ourselves a short break. You're listening to the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast and CanucksHockeyBlog.com and the Full Press Coverage Network. Thanks again to Cam for joining me. And again, apologies for the third time or fourth time for having this pre-recorded bit. Some things have changed. Ultimately, didn't really include first round draft picks based on what we were talking about. But Anna, any thoughts on what Cam shared?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting as always. And as always, I get caught up in, Cam's picks. He makes me fall in love with a prospect that I know we're not going to end up getting. So I've been reading Cam and other people's stuff on Brian Clark for a little bit, and I don't think he's going to be available at 9. But I think that would be great positional and best player available kind of coalescence there. But we'll see. I mean, as Cam says, it's kind of a mixture. So unless Owen Power is available still, you kind of have equal chance, but you really hope that Canucks do prioritize. If they have 2 guys still available to 9 that they like, if it's not a center or a defenseman, think twice maybe.
The one thing that actually struck me, because I asked Cam, knowing that this might be a possibility, do the Canucks put that pick into the market? And leading up, so since we had sat down and chatted with them to now, there's been some smoke that the Canucks are entertaining phone calls over number 9. And based on the scuttlebutt, it's not with the Vancouver Canucks looking to trade up. It's them looking to potentially trade down, which gives me thought that they have a person in mind who they don't feel the clubs close to them value as much. And when I asked Cam, sort of hey, would you do this? I mean, he obviously said, well, it depends on the situation, but between the lines, no. It would have to be a heck of an offer.
What if they want their 3rd round pick back? Is that how they get it?
Maybe. That's totally it. We want our 3rd round pick. The Vancouver Canucks trade their 9th overall to so-and-so for whatever, 14 and a 3rd round pick. Oh man, Anna, you are releasing the darkest timeline on us, and we haven't even got there yet.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you just have to wait until it comes up. Like, if your guy is still available, because I don't see how they have a guy in mind that they think's going to be still available past 10. Like, how do they predict that? I think you really have to be in on the inner workings of, like, the draft lists are so different. Like, Cam was saying that he had, like, he's sure that he has people on do not draft that people have in their top 20, like, or top 15. So,
well, there are players who are on D&Ds.
Well,
and probably players who are being added to them. And if there's one thing that I will always generally give the Vancouver Canucks the benefit of the doubt with, is their D&D list is generally a good one. That's just sort of organizationally, it's a brand that's really not big on problems.
Yeah, I mean, they do still have a problem on their roster.
They do, but I'm thinking they're hoping that problem will find a way to resolve itself and disappear, as in that contract gets ended for reasons.
Yeah, for my thoughts, and I won't dwell on this, if I was the Canucks, as soon as that buyout window was open, which was
open.
Yeah, as soon as it was opened, like, which was 11 p.m. on a Thursday night, 11:01, make that phone call, because he should not be welcome. That's my thoughts. But
so on a business, perspective, that possibility exists from now for
I agree,
through to the end of the month. And if there is a chance that contract could be considered void, and therefore you no longer have to pay Jake to go away, I think from a business perspective,
I completely understand what you're saying. I'm just saying from an optics perspective.
Oh yeah,
that would have been a better move.
Oh yeah, optics is that you just.
But yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I feel that the Vancouver Canucks, and I mean, if you're listening to the show and you're like, no, Jake deserves to be considered innocent until proven guilty, that's court.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree that in the legal system, that's how it should work. And that's how it does work.
Like, I mean, just based on what has been shared, there is acknowledgement that something took place and that it's simply a different recollection. I'm sorry. If the recollection is so significantly different between the victim and the person in this particular case, Jake, the accused or alleged offender, I believe the victim.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before, but consent is a pretty low bar. Hold out for enthusiasm. Like, we're not going to relitigate this, and
well, and it's not thing. It's not even relitigate. It hasn't been litigated.
No, true.
And that's not us.
But just to say that, like, it is very, very, very difficult to get any sort of sexual assault conviction, and I don't necessarily think that it's the case that we'll get one here. But we'll say, like, I mean, think back to the Brendan Leipzig situation. Did he do anything? We don't know, but that's not what was the issue.
Who's an NHL player anymore? Not him.
Exactly.
Right. So, like, there's.
I think it's a lot to do with the kind of player you want on your team, and not necessarily whether he will be convicted of a crime, which I agree, we don't know.
Yeah. But not to sort of derail our conversation as it pertains to the NHL entry draft. We got a couple text messages into the C4 text line, 604-200-6201, about the entry draft. And I thought we could read them out before you and I share who we think the Canucks are going to take. First one comes in from Jay. And again, it's important. Sign your texts. If you don't sign them, we can't give you credit. If you don't sign them, we might not read them either. It depends on the content. But if you at least put your name, then we're willing to do our part. So what does Jay say? He says, with the 9th pick, the Canucks should take whichever one of the top 9 prospects not named Wallstad drops. Goalies are voodoo, and like running backs where he puts RBs in football, don't draft them in the first round. Never draft them in the top 10. P.S. Light Force is a phenomenal lunch date, but he demands you come to him.
Yeah.
That's from Jay.
Yeah, we've already had a talk about this on IOTA. I'm just being jealous that I have yet to have a lunch date.
Hear about this.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, I agree. Don't take a goalie that high. I wouldn't say never. I believe there are exceptions, but I don't think this year would be the year to make an exception.
So, looking at many lists, the only goaltender that is there is the one named Wallstedt.
Yeah.
So, I'm kind of thinking Jay's suggesting something very clearly.
Yep.
About goaltenders.
Which I don't think he's far off on that.
The other text message we got was from Rich McPizza Hater. That's an inside joke for those of you who are in Discord. But Rich is a known hater of the McPizza, which was one of the greatest inventions that McDonald's has taken away from us and should bring back.
I'm Switzerland on this. I have never seen.
You never? Yeah, I know. You didn't get to try a McPizza. It's glorious. It's the greatest pizza. Memory might be, leading me astray here.
This is like the Mighty Ducks all over again. It's not actually good for you guys.
But Rich texted in, I think the Canucks take the best available defenseman or Mason McTavish.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of people, including Cam, are pretty high on Mason McTavish, so wouldn't mind that pick either. I mean, he sounds like not a real person. That
Mason McTavish?
Yeah. That sounds like a cartoon name, but, I like it. I wouldn't mind that pick.
Yeah, I'm conflicted. I'll be very honest. I'm of the opinion that the Vancouver Canucks look to fill their pick by picking a center. Like, whether it be Mason McTavish or Ken Johnson. But I'm then thinking centers are great to have, especially ones that become NHL players, especially if they're first round picks who perform to being a first round pick. But the Vancouver Canucks blue line's hurting. And I'm thinking that, maybe it is best defenseman available.
Yeah, I mean, that's a decent crop of defensemen. So, but if like Matty Beniers or Matty Beniers, I just said his name like as if he was French. Matty Beniers is available, or Mason McTavish, and you're not getting like Owen Power or Brent Clark, then I'd be happier to sway towards those guys.
Well, I don't see Owen Power or Brent Clark being available.
Neither do I. Neither do I. I'm just saying,
right. No, I know you're not. It's just that, that's where I start to wonder. I'm like, no, I don't. I feel that the defensive, gravitas just isn't there for. There's a bigger gap, and I feel that centers are sort of the route to go. And I mean, hey, we've got. I mean, Luke. Do you take Luke Hughes if he's available?
Sure.
This thing is now he might be a phenomenal defenseman, but I think you're taking Luke Hughes more out of a brand experiment than an actual. I'm taking him because he's the BPA.
Yeah, I don't know if any of the players we mentioned are still available, and they take Luke Hughes over them. I'm not going to say I'll be displeased, but
yeah,
Luke Hughes is a great player.
If Luke Hughes is available, I think the Canucks take him. There's too much going for the team to not take him, unless Luke Hughes and Brent Clark are available.
Right, that's the thing. I think at that point, what will be realistically available, and Luke Hughes is possibly going to be available at that point. I don't think you're taking that much of a risk.
No. I mean, who knows? We're saying all this right now, and it could be that we're talking about the Vancouver Canucks picking number 19 because they traded the 9th overall to get the 3rd round pick back, as you alluded to earlier. Man, that is so dark, Anna.
Sorry. I'm not cynical. I'm just realistic, right?
That's, again, something we talked about on IOTA. If you want to be a part of this IOTA stuff we're talking about, instead of the anthems, our YouTube pre-show exclusively available to our patrons. Supporting the show is nothing more than just $1 a month, or more, to depending on what level of access you want to get. Different tiers. It's patreon.com/C4 podcast. But let's talk about what else is going on. Obviously, the NHL Inch Draft is going to happen. We'll come back in a couple of weeks' time, talk about the results. We're trying to line up someone to also give their perspective post-draft, so stay tuned. But I think the big news, and this is the big news that happened today, and I was actually excited. I woke up this morning, I saw it, and I was like, this is awesome. Luke Brokop, who is a prospect with the Nashville Predators, shared a statement today stating that he is gay. And first of all, that's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Great. I wish we were in a day and age where you don't have to make a statement because it's simply accepted. But the point is, he's empowering so many
totally
who might be looking for someone to connect with and to not necessarily, and I'm not going to say encourage them to share their own story, because it's their story.
Right.
It's their story to share when they feel comfortable in doing so. But also to see the reaction around the league.
Because at this point, we're at the stage where representation matters. And if you can't see it, you can't be it. There's some kid who is thinking, oh, is there a place for me in hockey? And they see what Luke said and all the reaction to it, and they say, oh, okay, maybe there is. It is interesting that obviously there's no active NHL player who is out, and the numbers would suggest that there are LGBT players out there. But
when we spoke to Brock McGillis and sort of talked about this, the culture of hockey still has quite a distance to go, and it's more than just players. Like, this is the thing that actually I found interesting. For the most part, the reaction around the league from many players is like, this is great.
Yeah,
we're supportive of him. I mean, the Predators organization, I think, and I mean, I can't say I look at them closely. I'm a Canucks fan, very biased Canucks fan. They are a good organization who does good things, but I would defer to someone who watches them more closely than I to tell me if I'm wrong. But there are also those who will say one thing, but not realize that that's performative.
Yeah.
In not realize that what they say and actually do by action sends an entirely different message. And I feel the league is still in that place.
Yeah. I mean, the league has to realize that we support is an active verb. And that isn't tweeting that you support the LGBT community, that you support Luke. That's not what supporting is. It's not giving your money to anti-LGBT movements, such as
which
those
a number of
sponsored by
teams do
Chick-fil-A.
to a chicken restaurant. I wasn't going to give them their name.
Okay, fair enough.
No, you did. I mean, that's fine. People should know. It's a chicken restaurant. You can get far better chicken from far better places.
Yeah, and it tastes better when it's not laced with hate.
Yes.
But that's just one thing. It needs to be an active thing of, investing in changing the culture. So, I mean, this kid plays for the Calgary Hitmen. I think he'll play for the Calgary Hitmen for another season before he ends up in Nashville. So the NHL has some work to do to make the league a safe space for him and other people who like him by the time he gets here, because it looks like his team has done that already. But that's just a small sample, right?
Yeah. And a statement that Luke shared, he said, hockey is for everyone. And that is so true. It is for everyone. And the more that people understand that everyone is not an exclusive word.
Yeah.
Everyone is inclusive. Culture needs to be inclusive, and therefore everyone does not apply when it's exclusive. The moment that change starts to occur, the product that we watch will be better for it.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I just look at, like, you sort of raised the percentages before, as like, odds are is that there is a professional NHL player who has not reached that point where they feel comfortable sharing their sexuality.
Right.
There are a lot of reasons why they have not felt comfortable. It is their story. They're up to them as to whether or not they wish to share it. Maybe they are comfortable enough. They've chosen not to. That's all they're part of them. But the thing is there's also odds to suggest there are phenomenal hockey players who we know nothing about.
Yeah.
Because the environment is not inclusive to allow for them to be comfortable with their sexuality and who they are. And it might not even be sexuality. It's just they're not comfortable with who they are in a sport they might love or may have loved or want to love and be part of and be that next Wayne Gretzky on the ice.
Yeah.
And as a result, we as fans, we have lost out. Like we lose. The exclusivity is a loss for us, and it's all of us. And I just think people need to realize this.
Yeah. And I think you said it best when you said that, inclusivity is a thing that you must strive for. You can't just say that we accept everyone. It means not excluding anyone. And that's a thing that you actually have to try and do. It's not a thing you do just by believing that everyone's equal. It's creating a space where that is actually true.
Yeah. The sad part is that there are probably some out there that would hear that statement, that exclusivity requires us to include and create a clearing for those to belong, who would then say, oh, well, what you were talking about earlier about Jake Virtanen is not inclusivity, is it? Well, so what you're saying is that, oh, okay, so we need to include hate? Yeah. No, that's wrong. There are exclusions.
And I would say that
inclusivity is not people.
Kind of the NHL's kind of image that projects towards attitudes to women, it's not a positive one right now. So that's part of the inclusivity work that they have to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so much that I would love for us to tackle. There are so many different topics, and maybe that's something we do. I think about the experience like the Broads have had just in our own market, but even beyond that. And it's like constant. I mean, I imagine you yourself probably experience it, and I can't ever relate.
Right.
I
I do get some of it, but I think it's a pretty small percentage based on just a bigger brand the Broads have, and the fact that their brand is, the fact that they are women talking about hockey, like that is their brand. Yeah, but it's definitely a thing. I think hockey is just being held back. It's the smallest of the big sports in North America, and there's a reason for that.
It will continue to be that way.
Yeah.
It's NBA.
Yeah.
I think NBA and NHL, they used to be on very parallel paths, but the NBA has taken off. And one might argue, oh, well, it's the sport. Okay, it might be, but the sport is just not the 5v5 that are on the court, or 5v5 or 6v6 on the ice, depending on how you call it. But the
goalies
point
don't
is
count.
that
Goalies are voodoo.
There's more that the NBA speaks for and empowers than the NHL ever has. And I think there's money that is made. It's business. When you're inclusive and you allow for people to support you, regardless of their ethnicity, gender, sexuality, again, you're an inclusive league and you empower your players to be inclusive, while at the same time speaking loudly about social issues.
Yeah.
There's money, there's business there.
Yeah. I mean, just think about the superstar that PK Subban should have been. I mean, there's a player, a very good player, who's active in his community, donates to charity, and is outspoken about social issues, and the NHL labeled him a problem.
Well,
and that happens over and over again. There's a team where you can't even have a beard. It's just so backward.
And we haven't even touched on everything going on with the Chicago Blackhawks.
Right. Which we probably will over the off season once the various drafts come down. But yeah. Anyway, this is going to be a long episode as is. So we'll kind of pull back there. But
we will. I think things that we need to talk about, we will talk about. And hopefully you as our listener continue to tune in. Challenge us.
Sure.
I mean, Anna and I aren't telling you that we're right. We're quite frankly sharing what we feel is a very important point to raise, the opinions that we have. But I think that people who were to, sit back and listen to what we're saying will potentially see that much of what we suggest is the better path to be on. And we're not the only ones.
Yeah.
Well, this episode got a little heavy at the end.
Yeah, but I mean, geez, there was a lot to cover.
Mm-hmm. This is the problem of it going every 2 weeks. It's like feast or famine. Like we'll go a couple of weeks where we can kick it back with Andy Ide, who is a great interview. We're gonna have to get Andy back on the show.
It's fun.
Where we're just having a good time. There isn't a whole lot to talk about with Vancouver Canucks. And then we have a week like an episode like this where there's a ton that happened in 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks' time, there'll be another, like we'll have the expansion team. There'll be a team, an actual team in Seattle with a full set of players, not just I think they have 2 signed right now.
I don't even know who the second person is,
So, but that's the thing. Like, we'll have an actual team in Seattle who will have a roster. There will have been trades. That's going to happen. There will have been an entry draft. I'm trying to think. Timeline, is free agency going to happen before we record our next show?
good question.
All the dates are pinned in C4 Discord. So how that came to be, the Vancouver, not
It's
Vancouver,
the 28th.
the NHL.
So yes.
Yeah, so I mean, look at that. My goodness, this is crazy. We're going to go 2 weeks and all this is happening. Yeah, it's a summer. We have opinions. We might have guests. All I know is we're going to have a good time, you and I.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of good times, if you want to be a part of this good time, again, drop us a text message, leave us a voicemail, 604-200-6201. That's 604-200-6201. If you drop a text message, sign it. If you leave a voicemail, say who you are. Heck, promo yourself or do what I told Andy.
Leave
a voicemail advertising yourself. I mean, within reason, we'll probably include it. But be part of our show. I mean, it's something that we want to involve is our listeners more and more. And as you'll see, as sort of things begin to open up, we will have live shows. And we're not talking just virtual. We're talking actual show up live. Ann and I there. Heckle from the cheap seats.
Yeah.
They are cheap. You don't have to pay. You just sit down. You might have to order a beverage.
Yeah, but you would do that anyway.
That's like good etiquette. Discord. Be part of the conversation there. Discord.io/C4 podcast. Gate 16 is always hopping.
Yeah.
Lots of opinions. I'm trying to think if I came down since the last episode, might have been, but just we're adults for the most part. Let's act like adults. It's an I. You're more than welcome to have your opinion, as long as you acknowledge that it is your opinion. Just because someone else may disagree with you doesn't mean you are wrong, nor does it mean they are right. Focus on the royal you, which is me.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, Anna and I rule.
Yeah, what we say goes. But, we always say that's a nicer version of Canucks Twitter, so let's keep it like that.
Well, and I think that, quite frankly, what makes it nicer is Anna and I will step in, intervene, and settle stuff.
Whereas
ain't nothing happening in Canucks Twitter.
We do not have that power.
No. Oh, but yeah, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. We have another episode of Off the Rails for our patrons going live next week. This week's episode, it released like a day or two ago because I forgot to do it before I went away. Sorry.
I didn't say
I realized when I was at the in-laws and I'm like, well, I did not bring the equipment. I could try to do it on my iPad or I could do it when I get home, and I elected to do it when I got home.
So yeah, bumper episode coming out today. Plus, if you're a patron, you get Off the Rails. So a lot of C4 this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you want to find out more about Patreon, it's patreon.com/C4 podcast. But Anna, what final words of wisdom do you have for all of our listeners this week?
Well, the sea creature will be emerging from the depths of south of the border with its grimy little tentacles. So, it should be a no-lose situation for the Canucks. So let's see how Jim manages to lose it for us.
Oh, man, because you're bringing to the darkest timeline. When Seattle goes and offer sheets Petey, we'll all be sorry.
That's way worse than my third round trade thing.
Everything's going to happen and it's all going to be bad. Oh, hey, my final words of wisdom. If you want to cheer for the Kraken and you want to cheer for the Canucks, or you just want to cheer for anyone, guess what? You get to make that choice. Make it. Have fun. You're all good in our books.
Yeah.
As long as you like the C4 podcast. And even if you don't like us, you know you really do. You're listening at this point.
Like what you like. That's what I said.
Mm-hmm. That's right. But on behalf of Anna at A4603, myself, Chris at Lightforce, you can find us at CanucksHockeyBlog.com or our new website, which if anyone out there has design chops and wants to help us out, C4podcast.com. I have none. I'm using a WordPress sort of template, and it's not really working to my liking. Reach out to us, but yeah, you're also found on the Full Press Coverage Network. By the way, we're out.